Welcome to Mind Pioneer, the podcast where host Scott Donnell interviews experts in health, wellness, and technology.
Hey everybody, Scott here. Welcome back to another episode of Mind Pioneer. I've got a great guest for you today. We're going to have an amazing discussion. He is a licensed Baltimore acupuncturist and certified animal acupuncturist. Has an incredible story that we're going to go through. It's Tom Ingegno. There we go. Dr. Tom Ingegno. He is, like I said, an acupuncturist, certified animal acupuncturist. He's taught at the New York College of Health Professions and the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. He actually has a lot of master's degree in Oriental medicine and a doctorate in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. So we're going to have an amazing discussion today. As a practitioner, he combines traditional modalities with cutting-edge therapies to help reduce inflammation and improve circulation. I could go on for a long time, but he also volunteers and treats animal at the Baltimore a bunch of Baltimore rescues, and has done acupuncture and rescued pit bulls from Michael Vick, Camels in Egypt, and has been a consultant to the Maryland Zoo. So, Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, Scott.
This is going to be good. I think a lot of people don't know much about acupuncture. They don't know much about Chinese herbs and Chinese medicine. So that's what I want to get into today. I think this is a very interesting field. I think there's some weird stuff out there about the field. I love that you come referred. I love that you have the background, you have the history, and some trusted people are putting you on this podcast we're putting on this podcast for a reason. So I just want to hear, before we start, what led you to this, right? I want to hear about you, kind of your story for a little bit.
And how long of a version do you want, man? Because it goes back to childhood. I'll give you the highlights. How about that? And then if you want me to fill in, I'll fill in.
Yeah, like just how you got to this. This is a really interesting field, but it's not a field many people ever choose. And so I want to know.
So it's interesting because, for somebody coming from another culture going into it, that's always a big thing. My grandfather, I think I'll start there, was a pharmacist, right? And I remember one day he was counting out pills, and he was counting out pills for somebody without insurance. And he goes, this guy needs 5 pills a day, and they're $5 a piece. This guy is like, basically making minimum wage or less somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a huge chunk. So he looks at me, and this is back in the day before they had the computers, you actually had to deal them out by hand, put them in the bottle, label them, all that stuff. And he said, there's got to be a better way than this. I'm looking for you to find it. He passed away right before I went to college. When I was in college, I was all set up for pre-med. And I was sitting in a class with 200 other top of the, class students who all could memorize everything out of a textbook. But if you ask them how they felt or, to have an interaction with somebody else, sometimes it kind of short-circuited them. Like they were programmed for one thing, and that was to memorize stuff. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, but all of them wanted to be doctors too. I always wanted something that kind of merged the personality, the human side of medicine back in with like taking care of someone. Through a weird series of events, including taking a club Tai Chi elective and a Chinese philosophy course, the wires somehow got crossed in there. And I said, wow, this is kind of interesting. I came home from my junior year or my sophomore year, and shortly after received a postcard in the mail from an acupuncture school. And next thing I know, I'm enrolled in acupuncture school while I'm doing my second semester junior year, carrying about 32 credits and going, no, this is what I want to do. Once that happened, I never looked back.
Wow. There you go. I love it. That's everyone's, not everyone's story, but a lot of people that we interview, they had a personal pain point, a personal tragedy, or a personal struggle, or something that needed to be fixed. And then they made that their mission, and here you are. And I love it, man. We're all like, there's a time and a place for pills. There's a time and a place for prescription. Unfortunately, I think we tend to make that the de facto, and it shouldn't be. There's so many other holistic ways to help your body, and there's so many other things that are connected emotionally and physically and spiritually. And I think you're hitting it. So this is great. And then for people who, obviously we all have heard the word acupuncture. Oh, explain it to a first grader.
So I'll give you both the Eastern and the Western, because I feel
Yes.
like as it's moved to the West, there's kind of been they've made it more mystical. They've kind of built it up into this thing that I think is really doing it a disservice at the long side of it. And when we talk about terms like biohacking and how we can alter the human environment, if you will, acupuncture is really set to do that. Very sophisticated, using some classical terms. So when we talk about acupuncture, it falls into a branch that we call East Asian medicine, or traditional East Asian medicine, that includes everything from massage and other types of body work, to breathing, to meditation, qigong, tai chi, these movement exercises, Chinese herbal medicine. And then, of course, acupuncture is what everyone sees. I mean, that's the most visually appealing kind of thing. But that's putting needles into the body to affect how that body functions, right? So classically, we'd say we are putting needles into specific points along channels that would change how the energy is flowing through the body. Now, that is an amazing old school version of, basically defining this cascade, this multiple effects that happen during the body. When we look at acupuncture through the lens of studies, what we're seeing is switching off the fight or flight mode.
Got it.
Into rest and digest, which is a huge part of meditation. It's a huge part of yoga. It's all of these adjunct therapies do that in some way. 2, we're seeing increased circulation throughout the body. So areas that get fresh blood in and old stagnant blood with metabolic waste, lactic acid, cytokines, all these inflammatory processes out. If we get that fresh blood in, the old blood out, we can promote healing. And that's the main method of action of acupuncture. Now, we can talk about it emitting endocannabinoids, your brain's natural feel-good chemicals that look similar to cannabis.
Yep.
Endorphins, naturally forming painkillers in your body, and all of those things. But at its core, we have this overlapping cascade effect of switching off fight or flight, putting you into rest and digest, and allowing the body to reset.
Wow. Okay, I knew none of that.
That wasn't your first grader level, though, so I'm sorry, but
yeah, no, I actually have only ever heard of the Eastern explanation, right? Which is there are channels in your body, and you have, the flow of energy, which a lot of people kind of go, what? Like, is that, you mean like blood flow, or you mean like my virility? Like, what do you like? What do you mean? What is energy? What do you mean my energy? Like, that's the weirdest. Is like, you mean my soul?
When we look
so
at this word "chi," this is where it gets kind of convoluted when it came to the West. We'll watch these movies where people are shooting things out of their hands and knocking. It was never meant to be that. In fact, the word "chi" in China and "ki" in Japan is used to even describe, like in Japan, they'll say "genki desu ka." That's how are you doing, and directly translating, it's how's your original chi? How are you feeling overall? They'll use the word "chi" in weather. It was never meant to be this mystical thing, but and when we translate it now in modern terms, it's more like, does your body have the potential to do what it needs to do, right? Yeah. We don't perform all physiological functions at the same time, but they should be able to turn on and off when they need to. Yeah. When the chi is not abundant enough, or when the chi is stuck, that function can't perform.
Yeah. And now with, modern Western medicine and academic placebo-controlled blinded studies, you can have words like rest, digest, parasympathetic response, get out of fight or flight, circulation, less inflammation, endorphin trigger. We're just putting it in language that us Westerners can clearly feel comfortable with. Whereas for the last 10,000 years, everyone in Asia is like, oh yeah, she is like how I'm feeling, how I'm doing.
And that's the crazy thing, right? The system that was there before, the old language, still beautifully consolidates and defines everything.
Right.
But now we have a way that we can understand it and quantify it a little bit better through, God, there's over 8,000 RCTs, randomized controlled trials, in English alone. So
Wow.
combine that with studies that have been done all over Asia and the rest of the world. It's pretty damn evidence-based.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone comes in, is this, do you, how much of what you do is, pain-based versus preventative?
So that's really been an interesting shift since COVID, even, right? um Classically, when I started 20 years ago, 80% of the people coming in were coming in for low back pain. That was like the number one thing. 80% of the world's population is going to have that at some point.
Yeah.
That was kind of what we were known for. um but when we explained that acupuncture was this whole system, you started to see studies on fertility. You started to see these other studies that started feeding more types of patients in. Acupuncture at its highest level is practiced before you get sick. And that's a hard concept for a lot of Westerners, especially for Western males, where it's like, look, it's not broken. I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Right? We ignore that check engine light all the time in our own bodies. And within that, we're starting to see this shift, especially with a pandemic where everyone's locked in their houses and they're wondering what's wrong with them. And they're starting to think about their lives. When we have something that is literally the reset button, not only for your physical health, but for your mental health,
Yeah.
people really dig that. Now they're starting to come in just going like, look, this is going to help me stay healthy. If I
Yeah.
come every once in a while, maybe 20 years from now, I don't need that high blood pressure medication. And that's really where I think as a whole society, a global society, we need to aim more at.
Yeah. Man, you hit on the head there. I did this like full blood workup, urine, stool sample back in January, a few months back. And I was sitting with Dr. Rebecca Miller here in Phoenix, and she's a stud. And she basically told me, she's like, if you get cancer, okay, it's 150 grand a month on the system. They're going to charge you through all the insurance, all this different stuff on the system. Okay. Which for a lot of people, it ends up costing them a ton of money. Not to mention you're deathly sick and you're out of the workforce. You can't help people. Your relationships are strained. Like it just messes up everything. That's $1 million for a 6-month treatment. Okay.
Yeah. Crazy.
I spent $1,500. Okay. 1/100th of that. And we found out that I had 50, not just cancer. Like I had pre-dementia issues. I had celiac. I had a parasite that was eating me alive. I had villi sloughing off of my body, terrible gut bacteria, all these trace minerals wrong. My hormones were off, and pre-cancer and pre-diabetes. And we've fixed a lot of that in the last few months of work. And basically what she said is, can you imagine? Like, she's like, you probably gave yourself 20 years.
And 20 years functionally well.
Functionally of health span, yes.
Yeah.
Not lifespan. Not like everyone thinks, why would I want to get any older? I mean, I don't want to be in a wheelchair for like another 50. No.
Yeah.
We want you to be 100 years old feeling like you're 55. Okay. That's the point. Like, she's like, you just gave yourself a couple of decades of better health by changing your life now in your mid 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Than when the fit hits the shan in 15, 20 years. You're in deep doo-doo. And then the cost on the system, I mean, think about it. If we had more preventative training and preventative care, I'm not promoting global insurance or anything like that. I'm just saying, if people had this mindset, if insurance had this mindset, but there's no money in it, there's money in $1 million cancer treatment down the road. So the system's messed up. It's up to us to educate our constituents on how to make their bodies stronger, longer, and give themselves a longer health span to enjoy their grandkids. To hell, meet your great grandkids, watch them grow up. Like, think that way instead of, this tobacco doesn't really hurt me right now. In fact, it gives me a little bit of peace. I'm gonna keep going. I don't need. I'm good with 5 hours. 4 hours of sleep. I'll make it work. There's a lot going on. I'm gonna take that extra shift because I really need that money when your kids are young, and you really should just be with your kids.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I went on a little tirade, but I think you and I are.
That's okay. That's okay, man. I'm right there with you.
All right. I'm sure our audience has heard me say this a million times. So let's talk about Charm City Integrative Health. So what led into that? And I know you kind of mentioned the reason why going into this, but
Yeah.
why the Oriental medicine side of this? Walk us through what you do, how it's a little bit unique from just traditional acupuncture.
Yeah. So really, what I realized is, I've been in Baltimore for about 15 years. I came down here from New York, and we've expanded 4 times. Each time it seemed like, I love what I do, but I'm doing more and more work, and I'm realizing that I'm not reaching as many people as possible.
Yeah.
And that's not just because of the usual objections of like, wow, I really don't like needles or something like that. It's more of I can't work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, treating multiple people. And even if I could, I wouldn't even put a dent in this city's population. The idea here was to look at services that followed the same classical principles of acupuncture: reduced inflammation, improved circulation, regulated immune system function, improved their chi, if you will.
Yeah.
And was something that could be a higher volume practice. So we have some flashier services like cryotherapy. We use LiVO2, oxygen, exercise with oxygen therapy. We have red light panels. We have an infrared sauna. We do a salt chamber. We do medical cannabis consultations. We're really trying to put together, IV therapy.
Yeah.
Things that complement acupuncture, but once again, help regulate autonomic nervous system function, get that fight or flight, rest and digest balance. I know I hammer a lot on that. And then our unique, our special sauce, if you will, is combining them in a way that we call stacks, right? So if you talk to a weightlifter, you talk to biohackers, they'll say, you ask what's in your stack, they'll say, okay, I take a multivitamin, I take magnesium, I take this, I take that, and everybody's got it, right? We all got to pull out our little kit, right? But we're not doing that with therapies necessarily. So my goal was to put together things that made sense. So, you want mitochondrial health? Well, we're going to put you on the exercise with oxygen thing, and then we're going to have you get into the red light. Why? Because the mitochondria need oxygen to run the power, and then the red light makes that work. So great, now we're kicking out more cellular energy.
Right.
And all of that should be relaxing while you're doing it. This is not a bunch of stimulants. So, these machines don't get tired. We put the mask on you, we have you lay down, the machine just runs. It's not like me where I'm going to burn myself out. So my goal is to help as many people as possible, get machines to do it,
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I go to Optimize here in town. I'm helping Dave Asprey with Upgrade Labs growth. I agree, man. I was just in Dallas last week with Randy Eisenman, Satori Capital. He's a huge biohacker, loves it. His entire upstairs has millions of dollars of biohacking equipment.
That's crazy.
And so we spent the whole day in meetings. He's an advisor, and we're talking through a bunch of investment stuff. We're literally just going over business meetings with 5 hours of Vaspers and saunas and red lights and PEMF, and happy use and everything. We did the Risha, the one where you're sitting and it's like a biocharger next to you and you put the mask on. It's unbelievable. Calm. It's like New Calm on steroids.
Okay.
It was crazy. We did the hyperbaric chamber, and it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. I had some, I don't even know the concoction. I don't even want to. It was like a metformin, creatine, nicotine, peptide, something. It was awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm with you, man. I think it has to be a kind of a holistic deal. It has to be integrative, which is part of the name of the business.
Yeah.
So yeah, well done. Good on you. Anyone in the local area that knows you, I'm sure would say the same. So if you aren't listening to this, say it in the comments. If you have, let's talk about your book. Okay. I want people should mention the comments if they've read this book or where to get this book. You Got Sick. Now What is the book? Okay. And by the way, everyone, again, it's Tom Ingegno, Ingengeno. Ingengeo. There we go. It's called "You Got Sick, Now What?" This is I love that you were talking about. I'm trying to reach an exponential amount of people. I think a book is an incredible way to do it. So are podcasts. So are interviews. So tell, without giving it away, I would love to hear kind of about the book. What's in it? What are some of the main tips that you give people?
So, one thing that we try and do is there's so much of East Asian medicine that has its roots in folk medicine, and those are simple things that people can pick up and do at home easily, with little training, little knowledge, and apply them to their life. Now, at the time I wrote this, I was thinking of my mentor, who always used to try and say, like, it's got to be practical, it's got to be hands-on, it's got to be accessible, right? So everything we go through there, we go through 7 different techniques. We include some breathing techniques. We include some simple soups or Chinese herbal formulas for colds. We include some things like gua sha and cupping, which are modalities used in acupuncture, to try and help kick up your immune system and knock out a cold or the flu, at least shorten the course of it. All of it is, safe, you're able to do at home. And a lot of those supplies you can get relatively cheap and pretty quickly. And then once you have them forever, and you can use them for other things, like especially the cupping and gua sha, musculoskeletal pain, that kind of stuff too.
Got it. I love it. So yeah, we'll put the link to the book too. I think it's brilliant stuff. I like this flavor for the functional medicine world, the holistic medicine world, the biohacking world. I don't think a lot of people approach it from this angle. They're approaching it from a food nutrition angle.
And that's huge. That is huge.
Right. And I think there's a lot of people who own that space really well, or they approach it just from a, gadget world, Aura rings and
super
whoops.
Cool. I'm a gadget guy. I get that.
Trust me, I'm a bionic man. The whoop and the Aura, I got constant glucose monitor shot into my arm. So, but I love this. This is a new angle, of gua sha and cupping, and thinking about the acupuncture side, and thinking about the preventative measures that don't require a bunch of stuff getting shoved into your mouth. And I think that's smart.
And it's not one or the other, right? There's so many things you can do at home that, they're not sexy, they're not a cool toy, they're not, a big thing, but they do move the needle in the right direction for you. So why not tie those in with those bigger things, those fancier new gadgets, the full crazy blood work, all of it.
Yeah. What is your 3 things during the day that you're like, I got to do these 3 things no matter what?
So this took about 20 something years to finally get into my head, but meditate every day. Number 1, the longer the better, but start small and build up. Just be consistent with it. 2, my favorite thing is the sauna. I own a cryotherapy machine. We have all this fancy gadget. I'm using a far-infrared sauna. Just the research on it, the fact that it's had such a long history, the fact that it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold out, you get in that, you come out, you feel better. I love it. And then, I also, recently I've gotten into lifting weights, and that seems to, not only help me, physically, but, it does get my head clear too.
I love it. That's a good primer for the day right there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Meditate, sauna, and weights. Very good. I'm with you. I'm a CrossFit junkie, not the super heavy stuff, but constantly, different modalities, constantly varying. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. So, and I live in Phoenix, so we basically are a sauna.
You go outside and lay on a rock or something, right?
Yeah. Now I love red light and ice baths and everything, but yeah, we have a sauna down the street, so we optimize, and 156 degrees for 25 minutes, and That's plenty. And then you hop into 32 degrees for 3 minutes. It's a heck of a change. Cool. So I want to hear about this because you treated the 9/11 FEMA rescue workers.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So
I want
this
to
was
hear this. Like, how did that come about? What did you do? Yeah, man.
yeah.
Wow.
So this was really for something that's so horrible, that really kind of like marred in modern history, uh and changed, I think, our landscape as a country. um this was a concerted effort by several acupuncture schools in New York City. um Post 9/11, FEMA kind of took over the Jacob Javits Center, which isn't too far from Ground Zero. Um, and there was this effort to supply those who were helping clean up and look for people, um, some comfort and some support. So I think three or four of the local acupuncture schools got together. They brought in chiropractors, massage therapists, and acupuncturists, and it was like, anybody doing rescue work, anybody that's in the area that wants to come in and get treated, you get to do it. And out of something that clearly is still very fresh in my mind, even God, almost how many almost 20
20
years
years ago.
right? It, this beautiful thing that of what humanity could be, so around the Jacob Javits Center, not even when we were treating, a barbecue truck from Arkansas drove up, and he was just cooking whoever needed food. People were sending in socks and home baked cookies and toothbrushes and whatever anybody might need.
Wow.
But to get to treat rescue workers who were really just climbing through rubble and putting themselves at risk, it was really great to see that. I remember when one of the escalators, I was behind some firefighters, um, and coming up the escalator, there was another group of firefighters from Puerto Rico, and one of the firefighters going down said, "Hey man, thanks for coming." And the Puerto Rican crew said, "Hey, we would have been here sooner. We heard you had too much help." That got me a little choked up.
Wow.
They were telling people like, "Hey, we don't have any room for you to help," which
Wow.
was really, really some of the best things of humanity in out
Yeah.
of this horrible, horrible situation.
Yeah.
Um, and that
Absolutely.
still sits with me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why we all do what we do. I mean, we want to help. And you guys showed up at a dire time, and that was really cool to see. And you have my respect, and I really appreciate what you and I have a lot of other friends who were either at the building or helping, or firefighters and other things
Yeah.
like that. So yeah, thanks, man. That's a crazy story. And it makes me think about this whole, I want to talk about this because why would acupuncture be one of the main things that they want? A massage, okay, yeah, okay, fine. Muscles and people that have been, working nonstop. Chiropractors, okay. Firefighters need chiropractic because they're lifting things and their backs probably are killing them or something. Whatever. Talk about this mind-body connection with acupuncture, because I think that there's something special about what you can provide that can help people that are in dire circumstances or trauma or
Yeah.
PTSD
Oh,
or
all right. Oh,
recovery.
we're getting weird now, is what you're saying, Scott.
Yeah, let's talk
So
about it.
this is there's an expression. I only know it in Japanese. I don't know it in Chinese. But they'll say the mystery of the mind spirit needle, right? They have this word kokoro, which if you look at the character, it's the Chinese character for heart. But it's this mind body connection. There is something that happens when you're getting an acupuncture treatment, or even in a deep meditation or a float tank or something like that, where these, God, I don't even, it's so hard to put into tangible words. There is a thing that happens that, even though I'm talking about these physiological changes, and look, this is blood flow, and we know these hormones are going to balance, we know these neurotransmitters are going to come out, there is another thing that happens, and I believe it happens in all medicine, but it seems to happen more in acupuncture, where it, this weird spiritual thing kind of takes over. Some of the classics will say things like, the highest level of acupuncture is treating the spirit. or and I'm paraphrasing, so other acupuncturists, please don't pan me for misquoting our famous texts. But within that, people switch out. I've had some people come in over the years and say, "Hey, I don't know what you did, but I had this prophetic dream that night,"
Yeah. Yeah.
or I feel like there's somebody else in the room with us, or some weird stuff. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's a really interesting gift, because you go, oh, there's something that we don't see. There's something that we don't fully understand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it kind of reignites you in your passion for it as well, which is great.
Yeah. Trust me, I study quantum physics.
Oh, it gets all weird down there too.
Yeah. You don't have to, you're preaching to the choir about weird. Yeah. That's why I was a theology major. It's an amazing world we live in, man. Well, this is great. We're almost done. We got a couple minutes left. I wanted to know this. What is the best advice you've ever received, and who gave it to you?
If I say meditate again, I think that's going to be a boring interview.
Okay,
if I'm going to talk about a clinical advice here, I'll tell a story about my mentor who recently passed. But I had one patient that, unbeknownst to me, had been sexually assaulted, and she was just coming to see me to try and see if a male could treat her. I started treating her, and the second I walked out of the treatment room, she started crying. Now, this was I was a student, and my mentor was overseeing the treatment. And he said, just go sit down. I'm taking over the treatment. I'm looking at the assistant that was in the room with me. I'm going, did I do something? Did I say something? Felt horrible. Couldn't get over that experience. Later, she called me back into the room and said, just so you know, I thought I was ready to be treated by a male. I'm still not there yet. I've known your mentor for years and years. He's the one person that I'm comfortable with treating me. And I said, look, it's your treatment. But I moped around the rest of the day. The next day, I had a patient come in who was this just giant man. He had diabetic neuropathy. He said it was like his toe was getting touched with a car battery all the time. I treated him once. The second time was the day after this experience with this woman, and I treated him. I'm walking him back up to the front after the treatment, and he's literally telling other patients, don't see that student, come see my guy. He cured me in 2 sessions. This guy's the best guy in this school, pumping up my chest, right? It was out. I was feeling it. So I drop him off at the front desk. I walk away. Around the corner like a goddamn ninja, my mentor steps out, and he goes, remember how you felt yesterday? He might as well have hit me in the gut as hard as he could, because I was like doubled over in pain, like Jesus. And then he said to me, look, you're in the treatment room. You do the best treatment you can. Do not get attached to the outcome, right? I don't have control over how that person responds. And that can be applied to lifetime situations too, where you do the best you can. Everything else isn't necessarily going to respond the way you want, but don't be attached to that outcome either. That was probably one of the most profound pieces of advice I got.
Yeah.
A painful lesson, but I love the man like a second father. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good too, especially in the health profession. I know my uncle Chris Moyer he's the head pediatric surgeon at Mayo in Rochester, and
okay,
it's so important. It's like you do your job and you love people, but the outcome is the outcome. And you cannot live and die by the patient and their response to you, or their acceptance of what you say, or rejection of what you say. Just like with our children, we can't let our children's happiness or temper tantrums dictate our level of levity and peace and health, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well said, man. That's great advice for everybody listening. Whether you're a parent or a doctor, doesn't matter, or anybody serving anybody else, like do what you can, and then let the rest go. So Very good, man. Well, that's a good place to end this thing. What is there anything else that I forgot to mention or that you'd love to tell people about that they'd love to hear?
No, like I don't know, man. I'm excited to see where this world of medicine goes, because we're at this interesting standpoint where clearly public health is on everyone's mind, but I feel like the buzzword or the buzz phrase for the last, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years has been N=1. How can we optimize ourselves?
Yeah.
And I'm very excited for this merger of those two things. We know enough about public health. We know enough about our own personal bodies to take care of ourselves better, thereby raise the level of the population. And on the other hand, the level of the population gets healthier, we get healthier.
Yeah.
So this is a mutual thing. We work on it from both ends, and I'm so excited to see what happens in the next few years.
Yeah, well said. I'm with you, man. This is a good place to be. That's why this podcast exists. So very cool. Okay, so how can people find you? I know we'll put the link to the book.
Sure.
You got sick, now what? And then what about what's the best website or social people can reach you at?
So charmcityintegrative.com. My Twitter, Instagram handles are CC Integrative. Feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. I love doing podcasts. I love talking to groups. Even if you're interested, you're in another area, you want to help putting together a center like mine, I'm more than happy to help.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that's it, folks. That's perfect. Thank you so much. The book is You Got Sick, Now What? Charm City Integrative Health is the company. Tom, thank you so much for your time. And thank you, audience, for listening. We'll see you guys next time on Mind Pioneer. Take care.